Hi, my name is Alicia Foreman. This will be a part of my MBA course, and we made different slides talking about the Airbnb data that we uploaded to Tableau. This is only looking in New York City for the Airbnb information. Today we're going to look at what I've learned about New York City and the Airbnb data, along with different ways to look at the data. We'll look at histograms, bar graphs, scatter plots, and geomaps. There are 5 different neighborhoods that we will look at for New York City. Those neighborhoods include the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. I think it'll be interesting to see the different location of the neighborhoods, how big the neighborhoods are, and how many people live and commute at the different neighborhoods. Locations of places to sleep will be the most important, so if there is a high amount of industry in an area, then that may defer the Airbnb options for us to stay. An Airbnb is kind of like a bed and breakfast, but you can look it up on your phone, or you can pre-book way prior to arriving in New York City. I think that Airbnbs give us an opportunity of a place to stay with more amenities than, say, a hotel. You can also have many bedrooms in one, as we will look at information. A high amount of bedrooms in one building or number of beds kind of depends on how you look at it. Last, we will look at if we were to take our company to a conference in New York City, where we might stay. Our company is going to be a small company of about, say, 20 people, so we have a bit of flexibility. Also, how we're going to fly everyone there and take care of their accommodations. New York City is a great opportunity for a conference, maybe some downtime to go visit. It just kind of depends. So let's get started in our story here on Tableau. This is a histogram that we'll be looking at. It has the number of records, which would be the number of Airbnb opportunities. This information is also categorized in the buckets of $50. So each line will be looking at the amount of the Airbnbs. As we will see on most every neighborhood, the $50 price range, $50 to $100 price range will be the highest in all of them. This particular histogram, we have excluded some of the information. There are some Airbnbs with the highest amount of cost will be depending on which neighborhood that we're going to be looking at. So in order to visualize all that on this histogram, I have excluded that information. Let's get started in the neighborhoods. The Bronx is the smallest amount of Airbnb opportunities that we can see here. Again, the $50 price range, $50 to $100. Also, it's important to notice on the Bronx the number. There are the max amount in that section of 190. So we will look at Brooklyn and compare the two. Brooklyn is going to have a bit more than 190. I did not exclude any information from each of these neighborhoods. The most expensive is at $4,000 for one Airbnb to stay at. We were just looking at the Bronx, and now we're looking at Brooklyn. The Bronx, as we mentioned, was 190 at the max, and here we have almost 5,000 Airbnb options in the $50 to $100 price range. Because we're taking our company of 20 people, I think it's not a bad idea to stick in that price range. so we can maximize our opportunity at the conference. In addition to the amount of Airbnb opportunities, we can also see if we wanted to pay a lot of money. The max would be $6,500 for one Airbnb. I would hope that they would have silver uh, lining and gold plates with silverware. It would just be ridiculous to spend that much money on one place to stay, especially for a conference. Our company's not doing that great. Moving on to Manhattan. They also have a large amount, not as much as Brooklyn, but way more than the Bronx. It's also, they have more opportunity in the $150 price range, but we're going to stick with the $50 price range, 50 to 100. There's still, let's see, 3,246 places to choose from in Manhattan versus Brooklyn. The most expensive here would be $5,000 for one Airbnb, and they have three. So they have a lot more variety in the higher priced Airbnbs in Manhattan versus Brooklyn. Let's move on to Queens. If we are going to look at Queens, we can see that there are in the medium range of opportunities to stay at Airbnb. Again, the most is in the $50 to $100 price range, and similar to the Bronx, they only have one in the $4,000 price range and way few numbers of opportunities to stay in. The last neighborhood that we will look at, but not the least, is Staten Island. Staten Island is just that, an island, so our conference will probably be on the mainland. It'll be harder to access if we were to go to Staten Island and stay. Just looking at the Airbnb information, the max price that we could pay would be $5,000, and the most at 78 is the least amount of Airbnbs located on this neighborhood versus any of the other neighborhoods. But I think it would be a great opportunity for our company to visit Staten Island just to say that we've been there. I know it's a big tourist trap as well, so it'll just depend on our timing and what we can do while we are there. Maybe stay one night, then fly out. That could be an opportunity, but it will increase our cost for our conference and for our company to pay for that. Here's a scatter plot. We noticed when mapping the scatter plot that it talks about the bedrooms, the number of bedrooms in an Airbnb. If we wanted to everybody in our company, 20 people, stay in one location, that would be a good opportunity. So we might want something with a few more bedrooms. Maybe if we put 2 to a room, that would be 10. I see the orange and the pink. Manhattan and Brooklyn would be our best options for the 10 to 11 number of bedroom opportunities for our Airbnbs. Also, we would be able to stay in under the $1,000 mark, so there's a lot more opportunity in those two neighborhoods just by looking at the scatter plot. Another additional thing that we can look at is the Bronx has the blue dots. There's a whole lot of blue dots at the very bottom, very, very bottom, along with many of the orange, and it looks like many of the pink for Manhattan as well. Staten Island, Brooklyn, here in Manhattan at $10,000 for one Airbnb. It's just interesting to see the scatter plot versus, say, the histograms we were looking at earlier. Moving on, here's a bar graph with the beds and the number of beds in the different neighborhoods. We were talking about our opportunities where we do see that Manhattan has the most and Brooklyn coming in right behind it, and the least amount of options which were significantly less when we were looking at the histograms earlier for each of the 5 neighborhoods. Staten Island was the least, and the Bronx the next. We can see all of that in this bar chart. The different shades on the bars would be the most would be the deepest color, of course. So we can see Manhattan is fulfilling that significantly. I really enjoy the geomaps. Here we can see how New York is set up and what it looks like. These are just by zip codes, so we don't know where the neighborhoods are located. Other than the one at the bottom left here is going to be Staten Island because it is an island and is not connected to anything. We're going to look at the number of Airbnbs in any location. If I were to guess, I would say this area is going to be either Manhattan or Brooklyn because it significantly has the most number of records. In our geomap. We have excluded some of the information to bring more color to our map, but this is a very interesting look with our data. Here we have some more labels. Let's look at this geomap with the average price. We wanted to stay with the $50 to $100 price range. So this one has the $40 all the way up to just under $500. And we can see a significant amount of different change in the different zip codes. So that's why we limited our data. Looking at the average price on the higher end is over here on this island. There are a lot of there's many different zip codes here, of course. I'm thinking in this area would be where we want to stay, and this would be a great opportunity to look at different zip codes location-wise, depending on where our conference is located, and we can find the average price and then go from there to book a room or book a Airbnb location for our company. This is by far my favorite map, as you can see the different neighborhoods that we were looking at in the beginning. Yes, we are correct. This green part down here is Staten Island, how it was not connected by any of the land mass. Here's Brooklyn. We were looking at Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan when we were looking at the most number of Airbnbs were in this region, and the average price, we could select whichever zip code had the best price average. Here we're going to look at the price per bedroom. I would say, depending on the location of our conference, we would select somewhere here in Brooklyn, as it's attached, it's closest to Staten Island. It's attached here to Queens and the mainland, and I'm sure there are bridges connecting here. Looking at all of the Airbnb data, it is definitely different how you can see the neighborhoods individually versus these geomaps with the zip codes, but you can still see the neighborhoods. Again, that's my favorite. The scatter plot where each one is a different number of bedrooms, so there's nothing in between. So our scatter plot ended up in lines. The histograms with the buckets, amounts of Airbnbs you could stay at. I think overall for our conference, I would definitely select the Brooklyn area because it's a part of the mainland. And then maybe we can visit Staten Island on the weekend. I wanted to thank you for listening to this presentation, and I hope you've learned a little bit about New York City and their Airbnb data that we discussed today. And I look forward to visiting New York City soon, maybe in the next couple of years. So, thank you. Have a great day.